Hey everyone, welcome to an Advanced Sports Analytics live stream. Today is Friday, June 25th. Happy to have made it through to Friday. Have a good DFS slate tonight between MLB, big 13 game slate, and we have game 2 of Milwaukee, Atlanta, which proved to be a very fun and entertaining game 1. So we'll see if they can repeat that tonight. I'm joined this afternoon by Charles and Gus, here to talk through both MLB and NBA. So I want to start it off just talking through the NBA slate. We have a champion mode slate on SuperDraft. So anyone who has access to our projections and optimizers can use that through the fast break projection tool. SuperDraft on their strategy site tonight should also have an article coming out with some strategy notes and thoughts for the game, as well as utility and champion projections for both the Atlanta and Milwaukee side. So I encourage you guys to check that out as that comes out, and check out the single game champion mode contest that I have available. I know, Gus, you have been looking closely at the Atlanta-Milwaukee game, studying the data on both sides and kind of eyeing which players you like. So I'll kick it off to you. With this matchup, we have kind of two stud players in Giannis and Trae Young, a handful of what I think are quality kind of secondary players with Capella, Middleton, Holiday, Collins, and then a swath of kind of tertiary players who at times this postseason have all found, or many of whom have found ways to be productive. We've seen good games from Herter, Bogdanovich, Lopez. Portis had a improved role in game 1, but starting at the top and looking like at Giannis and Trae Young, how do both of these guys factor in, and how you're viewing lineup construction? Or are you looking to jam both these guys in, get one or the other, or are you comfortable maybe fading both these guys and just going with secondary and tertiary pieces?
So the game last night between Phoenix and LA, definitely you would have done well if you had faded up the top Phoenix scorers like Booker and Chris Paul. I believe there was one point they were combined 0 for 14 or something like that. I mean, they shot like 25%. I don't see that happening tonight. I think the construction definitely has to go star heavy. So almost a stars and scrubs type of roster construction is what I'm thinking for tonight. You're going to want to get both those guys in there. They're both going to get about 25 field goal attempts, play 40-plus minutes, 35 to 40% usage. It's definitely going to be the Trae Young, Giannis show tonight. And then I do think they correlate well with the, not to say tertiary, I would say more the secondary players like Drew Holiday as well as John Collins. On the ASA site, there's a player correlation app. If you look at during the postseason, starting, if you can set the date range from like May 22nd, 23rd till about now, Giannis's correlation with Drew Holiday is really strong. It's, I believe, about 0.68, 0.7. It's okay with Middleton, but very, very strong with Drew Holiday. So I think you'd want to pair Giannis with Drew. And if you run it back with Trae Young, I think you'd want to pair him with John Collins. Given that Young scores a lot, but he also does manages to get double-digit assists, and Collins is the guy who looks for down low. So I would probably my core would be Giannis, Young, and then also throwing in Collins and Holiday, and then near the end you probably to round up your construction, you're going to probably want some high multiplier guys, and that's where you may want to take a flyer. And this is the great thing on the projections on the ASA site as we're looking right now. There's Tucker at 2.75x. There's Herter at 2.2x. And as you mentioned a few minutes ago, they have had the tertiary players have had some moments in the postseason. I think Lopez is the guy I'd probably want to fade, mainly because he is going up against Capella. Capella ranks number 2 with real plus-minus ratio for centers this season. So I think, and there's 2 other games Lopez had against Atlanta where he did not do well at all. I believe one game he had 11 points on the board, another game 12 points and 3 boards. So, yeah, I would consider, really going star heavy. And it's going to be different. I mean, like last night, yeah, if you had Ayton, Zubac, Reggie Jackson, and then maybe Paul George as a building block, yeah, you did great. But I just don't think that's going to happen tonight. I think it's definitely going to be a very star-heavy, maybe a 6-7-man rotation. If the game is a blowout, that's the other thing too, is that it's hard to predict what the game flow is going to be. If it's a blowout, then yeah, you are going to get some of the decent bench players on Milwaukee, like someone like, and there's the Blowout Boost app, which is another great app, where someone like Bryn Forbes would do well, and he comes out a great multiplier, or Bobby Portis. But I just think it's going to be another close game, high scoring, lots of fireworks from the star players. That's how I'm going to go about this slate tonight.
Yeah, we see an 8.5, or I'm seeing right now an 8.5 point spread in Milwaukee's favor. I mean, certainly a game with some blowout potential. Obviously, the median outcome is that it stays, within a range where teams are kind of inclined to play their best players and kind of play rotations as expected. But at 8.5, we could get kind of one standard deviation above expectation, or one standard deviation in favor of Milwaukee, such that it does blow out. So I think it's an interesting thing to consider. And you make a good point about kind of the relationship between Giannis, Holiday, and Middleton. I think of like Giannis obviously is a guy that can score, but also gets his production through defensive stats, rebounding, even assists. And I think Holiday is kind of that way too. I think an underrated defender, or maybe appropriately, well-regarded defender, can also distribute, also get rebounds pretty well from the guard position. Middleton is like kind of just a pure scorer. So for Middleton to have a ceiling game, you kind of need him to just put up like a massive scoring effort, which I think is going to naturally take away production, or at least opportunity to produce for Giannis and Holiday. Now, Charles, and the way you're looking at it, we've kind of just dissected some of these top plays. How do you view kind of these secondary players? I think Gus pointed out Collins is strong play, Tucker. I guess if you kind of consider Holiday as a secondary play, but among some of these deeper high multiplier plays, we have seen some of these guys on both sides have big games. Are there any guys that are standing out to you as particularly strong? Maybe even not from a median standpoint, but just guys who do have high upside. Should the game script work out in a way that's conducive to them, or should they catch like positive variance with regards to defensive stats or extra kind of 3-point shot attempts? Curious to hear your thoughts around some of these guys.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I'm very close to what you guys are saying. I think the main guys are kind of just the guys who project that upside usage correlated with like outcome, like a Bogdan guy who was obviously incredible up until dealing with a little bit of an injury. I mean, seems like he may be back after 28 minutes last game if he gets the full role, and they've kind of shown that when he's healthy, he's a 35, 36-minute guy. If that 2.15x multiplier hits when he gets that full roll back, I think you have real strong upside there. I mean, we've seen him take 16 shots, and obviously going 1 for 6 in game one, a lot of people are going to fade him. So I think it's a strong kind of fade consensus and medium floor, but super, super high ceiling if he's, 6 of 9 from 3 or something like that. And then, I mean, on top of that, it gets really thin really quick, obviously, because of how slim these benches have been from both these teams. I mean, you could look at a Gallinari who's shown some upside when he gets hot. But other than that, I mean, it gets, you're kind of grasping at straws here. PJ Tucker, who projects pretty high with that 2.75 multiplier, there's very little game paths where he's taking, even more than 6 or 7 field goal attempts, which obviously keeps his floor super low. So I'd be looking at guys like Bogdan. I wouldn't be afraid to play the big three from the Bucks with Middleton and Holiday and Giannis. I mean, we saw last game they all had 23 or more field goal attempts. That lack of correlation is kind of just like Middleton takes his own shot and makes his own shot. So he's cold and hot irrespective of the other guys. But I'd be looking Bogdan and especially closer if we get injury news that he's like clear to go. I'd love him as a play tonight.
Yeah, and I can't imagine. I know like Cam Reddish was activated ahead of last night's game. He didn't play. Seems unlikely, but it's not a total zero risk that Reddish takes away minutes. But like I could see, Bogdan would be the guy maybe that stands to be impacted the most by Reddish playing. But I think most likely outcome is Reddish remains on the bench, just given his long stint on the shelf, and kind of we're at the point where we are in the playoffs, and I think coaches kind of want to keep the players in the rotation they have. Well, yeah, sounds good. And as from a cash game standpoint, definitely agree with you that going Holiday, Middleton, Giannis makes a ton of sense. Those guys, along with Herter and Trae Young, are in our optimal. So I think that feels like a quite strong way to go for cash standpoint. And there does seem to be like a pretty significant drop off after Giannis. Like we're projecting Middleton and Holiday significantly like ahead of kind of the field, but then Young, Herter, and Giannis all in pretty tight tier among themselves, and then kind of some tertiary pieces, secondary and tertiary pieces projected below them. However, for tournament purposes, of course, you got to think about this stuff distributionally, and all these guys that project less than favorably still, many of them still have paths to being tournament viable plays. So I encourage you guys to consider that at your leisure. For those who are just joining, I think as we tweeted out from our Twitter account, if you want to get your name in a raffle or a random giveaway for 4 SuperDraft tickets tonight, 2 for NBA, 2 for MLB, subscribe to the ASA channel, comment your SuperDraft username, and we will add you to the pool. And we'll do a random and list your favorite champion play for the slate, and we will do a random draw for those 4 tickets. We did have one question come up. What's your thoughts on if you had to choose between Tucker or Lopez? It does sound like the consensus is kind of favorite towards Tucker. Lopez, I think, only played 20 minutes in game 1. Is that where you guys stand, or do you have more favoritism towards Lopez?
Well, I mean, Lopez is a Stanford guy, but I still have to go. I go with the money, not my heart. And so, yeah. And plus, he only played 1 year at Stanford anyway. I think he was cutting class from what I heard. But yeah. Anyway, no, I would go Tucker. I mean, yes, his usage is low, but he has a much better multiplier. I just think Lopez, he's really kind of like a true center. Even though he does have some perimeter game, but yeah, Tucker's going to do more for you for the ancillary stats, and I just think Capella is going to be just a nightmare for Lopez. I mean, when they're playing more in isolation, I think Capella's just such a great defender. That's really what Leonard's using Capella as an enforcer. And yeah, you made a great point a few minutes ago. I mean, like combined field goal attempts with the big 3 for Milwaukee's, they're probably going to be attempting somewhere between 60, 70 field goal attempts combined. So there's not much there for Lopez. I think Lopez is a serious fade.
Charles?
Yeah, I mean, I got to agree with you guys here. There's the one single path to Lopez going off is if he takes his first 3 and gets hot and, goes 5 of 8 from 3. But, I mean, it's such a unlikely event that I wouldn't really want to have my money there unless it's like a, tournament play and it's one of your 20 entries. But I'm leaning Tucker with you guys as well.
All right. Why don't we head over to MLB? Definitely, I think a bit more to talk about with the 13 games on the slate. Lots of players to choose from. So we will load up our MLB projections and optimizer on the main slate. And why don't we start with pitcher? Charles, I know you have looked closely at some of our MLB projections and data today. I believe there will be a SuperDraft article coming out later this evening with your thoughts on the slate, as well as some of the top projected players in both the hitter and batter positions. But starting with pitcher, who's standing out to you as some of the premier value plays on the slate?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got we've been seeing this common trend of these 2x multiplier guys at the top, just as the way they're valued. I mean, not only are they great kind of floor plays, obviously you can lose at a pitcher spot pretty easily, but the ceiling here in tournament play especially offers kind of just too important a value to steer away from. So, and there's this top group here, Gonsolin, Valdez, Manoah, and going through recent kind of like their June performance and stuff, I'm all over Valdez tonight. Just start with why not the other two guys. Gonsolin, he's kind of just been a starter, went 3.2 innings. This is his last performance. I mean, I'm a little worried that being slated at the starter there, he doesn't get that full go. So I just watched that. And then Manoah, who's been kind of in a similar boat, but coming off a Baltimore performance last Saturday where he had 3.1 innings pitched and gave up 5 earned runs. I mean, I kind of like to fade guys who are coming off really bad outings and wait for them to show something of quality beforehand. But, then we jump into Valdez, who's a guy who I wrote about in the article tonight. I mean, he has been an absolute monster, 4-0 in June with a 1.59 ERA. I mean, his whiff rate, 26% basically, almost 3% above average. And he's going up against a Detroit Tigers team that's just been, pretty horrible and loves to, whiff away. So I love this matchup tonight. That 2x multiplier just is way, way, way too good a value. I'd have him in everything cash tournament. I think he offers great upside. And then kind of as you work down the lineup, I mean, these are some guys we've seen before, but I went with the guy, Carlos Rondon. He was projected a little higher this morning, but kind of going away from that 2x, he's got the 1.75x and just coming off another monster June, 1.4 ERA in 3 starts. I mean, his whiff stuff is absurd, like 32% compared to the 22% average. And the Mariners lineup is kind of matches up perfectly, 32% whiff rate and contact rate 3% below average. And, he's been throwing 8 or 9 strikeouts each game in June. This could be 11, 12 strikeouts quick. So I've liked looking at these slates and targeting like the weak teams, the teams that swing and miss a lot. And those would be my 2 plays for the night.
Yeah. So I'm with you on Rodon. Seattle for much of the year has been probably one of the worst contact teams in the league. And I'm with you on Valdez, except for in the last 5 minutes or so, that game has been announced as postponed due to weather. So we are definitely going to have to rethink how we want to structure our pitching. I didn't want to cut you off there because you were. I know you had some kind of strong opinions on Valdez. He has been awesome this year. That whole Houston pitching staff has been great, and Detroit is a team that I think is pretty good to pick on. They aren't quite as bad of a whiff team as Seattle, but they don't really hit the ball that well. Seattle's got a lot of swing and miss guys, but they also have some guys like Seager, Lewis, Ty France, who when they put the bat on the ball can really send it a long way. So yeah, we'll have to think differently about Valdez. Also agree with you on Gonsolin. He at times is used kind of just as an opener type player, and I think one of the things that we feed into our projection system is, team win probability and, interacting that with how deep pitchers are expected to work into the game. And, the Dodgers are huge favorites, minus 182 odds to win. But yeah, I mean, it's just you got to get 5 innings to qualify for the W. And I do think Gonsolin is at a bit of an elevated risk to not meet that mark. But yeah, I mean, when you can pick these starters that are able to get the win at 1.8 to 2x, such that win is worth 8 fantasy points. I mean, that's huge. Manoah is interesting. I mean, he is a rookie pitcher. I think he's only had maybe 3 starts or something like that. Kind of a middling prospect, slightly above average, I think. Baltimore are usually a team that is a pretty good spot to match up against. Canning, if it weren't for the matchup, I think would have a stronger projection. But I could see Tampa Bay being a popular team that people try to stack with, the emergence of Wander, and of course they got Meadows in there. Just a good all around, offense. So, Canning I could see as being kind of a contrarian option. Gus, we have a Bay Area matchup for you that I'm sure you are paying close attention to. And Manaea, we have a pretty strong projection for. How do you view, Manaea in this spot, and as well other pitchers on the slate that you might be interested in targeting for cash or tournament purposes?
So it's funny, actually. Use the Bay Bridge series I do like to focus on, but I have been focusing more on the earlier games. I would probably go towards Manaea if I had to choose between Manaea and Cueto. Cueto has been a volatile pitcher, even though he's one of the few guys that's still left from the championship years, or at least the playoff years of the Giants from a few years back. And of course, other guys like Gausman and Desclafani have done well. But I definitely am with you guys with Carlos Rodon. I'm just to have a full consensus. My only slight concern is that there is some rain in the forecast. Chicago. I knew the Detroit-Houston game was going to get called. That just the weather just looked nasty there. I've been following the forecast. Another guy I liked is Pablo Lopez. I think he's someone that might get overlooked. I mean, on a 13-game slate, you're not going to have terrible high ownership with any. I mean, unless if you have just like someone like DeGrom, I guess, against a weak team. But Miami has. If you look at park factors, they tend to allow the least amount of runs in the league. Washington's not an offense I'm terribly worried about. And Lopez has done great at home. If you look at his home numbers. I think the two pitchers, if I were really kind of focus on two pitchers today, it would definitely be Rodon and Lopez. I just think both those guys can get double-digit Ks. They can really just dominate for your lineup. So that's where I'm probably going to be leaning. Manoah is interesting. I think he's very talented, but I think the Baltimore bats, if you're going to guys start transitioning towards the offense, could be an interesting play, especially if Manoah has given a fairly high barrel rate. So I just, if you're using StatCast data. So I think just don't get cute. Just really kind of focus on, the big names. And one last thing about Rodon, he is in his last year of his contract. So the guy's going to looking for a big payday. And he has thrown a no-hitter this year, and Seattle's been no-hit twice. So I just think, I as long as that game plays and it doesn't get pulled because of rain, I think Rodon has to be the guy you got to go with tonight.
Yeah, no, I think that checks out, and especially with a strong play like Valdez off the slate, that makes a ton of sense. One person who we're not projecting super favorably, but NWA listed as their preferred pitcher, Chris Paddock. He's at like 1.7x, which for a guy who was just so effective last year, meets the eye as like a pretty strong, multiplier, I guess. He hasn't been great this year. 4.10 ERA, more losses than wins, but San Diego is heavy odds to win the game going up against Arizona, and Corbin Martin pitching for Arizona, who's been quite bad for Arizona this year. And then of course the game is in Petco Park, which is known as a very pitcher friendly park. Do you guys have any interest in Paddock just kind of going against the projections and hoping that Paddock can return to his 2020 form?
I'm not really big on Paddock. He just seems too much of a wild card to me. Yes, Arizona is not a terrible baseball team, and yes, the outfield in park I've frequented a few times is cavernous, especially when that the cool San Diego breeze kind of sets in at night. But I still I don't know. So it's just Paddock has done me wrong a few times, and I would say when he first came out, I mean, he definitely looked like promising pitcher. But no, of course, I mean, San Diego's got other aces. I mean, they're just, a loaded team. But yeah, I don't know. I can see Pack being a popular option. I just don't know if he's just too inconsistent for me.
Got it. All right, why don't we move along to batters and we can discuss individual plays that are standing out to you. Maybe, though, it makes sense to start with stacks. I like using our lineup stacks tab, which does kind of the work of aggregating projections by team and filtering or kind of sorting teams based on highest cumulative 1 through 9 batting projection. One of the pitfalls here is that you do have sometimes teams that are like top heavy. I think we saw it the other night where Minnesota's 1 through 3 hitters projected quite favorably, but the 4 through 9 hitters were fairly weak, such that they didn't bubble to the top. But looks like right now at the top of our system is Houston by a pretty wide margin. Their cumulative projection is a clear 20 points of the next highest. Oh, well, we mentioned that game was rained out, so scratch that. All right, so once you move past Houston, it actually does look pretty tight. Texas, Minnesota, Toronto, all projecting quite favorably. New York, Cleveland, Baltimore with reasonably strong projections, and kind of so on and so forth from there. So, Charles, I think in your article you try to highlight one team stack that you want to target. What team stack is kind of standing out to you tonight, and are there other ones that are kind of in top consideration for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, Houston was juicy tonight, but I like all those middle range teams. Kind of, I mean, the Twins have just been clobbering, and then I kind of like the divergence from like consensus. Like the Rangers is an interesting play. Like they're getting kind of over under 8 there, but I mean. The Twins over under tonight 9.5. They're going up against the 0-2 Indians pitcher. I like that. We're projecting some of those guys pretty well. Kirilloff, Luis Arraez, and I'd probably lean the Twins now. Kind of see if that game gets high scoring, out of hand, and a lot of runs coming across the plate, but I'm happy with a lot of those lineup stacks there.
Yeah, and you can go a number of ways with the Twins. I mean, you could go, Kirilloff seems like a really strong play. Has good StatCast metrics, and they're kind of, I would say, catching up, and he's been seeing better production as of late. And really, from Kirilloff, you can kind of go with a bottom of the order type stack where you go like Larnach. And maybe go like Cruz, Kirilloff, Larnach. I guess though you're skipping kind of 5 and 6. We don't have strong projections on Polanco or Kepler, who have pretty low multipliers. Or you could kind of go with the top of the order and go something like Arraez, Donaldson, Cruz, Kirilloff, or kind of pick 3 of those 4. So yeah, I think there's kind of good ways you can stack up the Minnesota side. And you mentioned Texas as well. We have a really strong projection on Garcia, and I think Garcia makes for an awesome one-off play, even if you're not stacking Texas. Like his power is undeniable, so he can he can get you productivity even if like the Texas team as a whole fails just on his isolated power. But you look at Garcia, Kiner Falefa's been great this year. Eli White, I don't know much about, but we've got a strong projection on him batting second. Joey Gallo, we don't have a super strong projection on, but he's got undeniable pop and could show up in the home run column just about any game. Gus, any team for you that is standing out besides Texas or Minnesota?
Toronto. Yeah, I had Toronto yesterday, and they blew the barn doors wide open in that first inning with Gurriel's grand slam. And then, of course, it kind of quieted down a little bit. And, of course, you need good pitching. And, we don't have the pitching, then forget it. But, yeah, I think Toronto, it's a high over-under, 10.5. Harvey, just a god-awful pitcher. And now they have Springer coming back. He's batting 5th. Simeon's been great at leadoff. I guess Guy likes Paddock. Well, I think it's very. I just we'll see. I'm just wait and see for Paddock. But yeah, and I even like Baltimore too. I think you can run it back. I think you could do a full Baltimore Toronto stack. I think the middle of the lineup can surprise you. I just see a lot of fireworks, and the park plays like a little league park. I mean, this is what Toronto's. Since the pandemic, they can't really play in Canada. So, I'm really liking Toronto a lot. And Cincinnati might be another one. Smiley is kind of a hit or miss pitcher. The heart of the order for Cincinnati is also looking pretty. Especially Jonathan India is playing great leadoff. So that's kind of where I'm putting more of my focus. And I do one-offs. I think Leonard Franco, his first game was incredible. We'll see what he does tonight. I like Minnesota. I did keep an eye on him. I just seem to always be on the wrong side of Minnesota when I play them. Not playing them tonight, so I'm sure they'll go off. But yeah, Toronto's going to be the one I'm going to be putting eggs in that basket tonight.
Yeah, certainly Vegas likes Toronto. That game's got a 10.5 total, and Toronto is minus 265 to win. So, great implied total for them. Harvey is a great matchup, 7.80 ERA on the season. Baltimore's bullpen is actually also quite weak, and the wind is going to be blowing out slightly in Buffalo tonight. So, I think that one checks out and makes a lot of sense. As well. We did have one question maybe that we can close with from Nomad Traveler asking about San Diego stack. We don't have the strongest projections on San Diego guys. It's just tough. Like Tatis is obviously an exceptional talent, but at 1.05x, it's a pretty low multiplier on him. Of course, San Diego is a tough hitter's park. Cronenworth, I think, is standing out as maybe the guy who projects reasonably well, and you could consider from a one-off standpoint. I think if you were going to stack up San Diego, probably just going 1, 2, 3 with Pham, who's got great. Pham and Tatis both have good steal equity, which I think is really nice. Of course, a steal for Tatis isn't worth like a ton. Pham worth slightly more at 1.35, but I do think if I were to stack up the San Diego side, probably just go 1, 2, 3. I don't know. Do you guys see any other San Diego players that you would want to build stacks around if you were stacking up that game?
I'm with you. The 1, 2, 3. Cronenworth is, and again, the Statcast data I like to look at barrel rate, and he's been incredible since last year. And you get those two guys batting in front of you, and Tatis will get on base often. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to go, especially lefty on righty. And I was checking out the game the other night, and Cronenworth is just a good ball player. And now that the stadium's packed and the Padres fans were really loud, the Dodgers game. I think just Padres are playing with a lot of momentum against the worst team in the league. I think you'd be fine at the top 3. I wouldn't really go any more than that, and probably focus more on those earlier games that we talked about. Those earlier stacks, I think, are going to, they could pair well if you go San Diego, especially for a late night hammer. That could be nice.
If I recall, you got a big win last postseason with Cronenworth, right?
I did. Yeah. I actually remember I was picking up Thai food for the family, checking the phone. I'm like, oh, he had a home run. Because in the postseason, Cronenworth was. That's when I started following barrel rates. Seager's another one too for the Dodgers, but I love Cronenworth. I think he's just a great. He's very underrated. It's not a big name, but he's starting to make a name for himself in the league.
Yeah, definitely. It's cool to see him batting third in such a strong San Diego offense. All right, well, that'll about do it. Charles, anything you want to add from the MLB standpoint before we close out for the week?
No. I think we've given a lot of information, and always happy to hear your guys' thoughts as well.
All right, great. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for the questions. We will complete kind of the random ticket selection here right after the show to get you guys tickets before MLB and NBA lock tonight. So good luck to everyone who's playing on SuperDraft tonight. Good luck to everyone who's going to be playing this weekend. Should be more NBA playoff action. And we will be back next week with more of the same. Take care, guys.